Likus, and welcome to Object Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of several books, no other than Mr. Brad Dude.
Hi, Daniel. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Mr. Brad. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yes, I started my writing career following my college journalism degree at Northern Illinois University outside of Chicago, and was very involved with the Peace Corps. I worked out in Micronesia and in Samoa for most of the 80s, and then joined Westinghouse and did a lot of management consulting, leadership consulting. I was lucky to work in probably 35 or more countries around the world doing international consulting. So I've had a very interesting time with my career and really enjoyed meeting a lot of people from different cultures.
Different culture indeed. And Mr. Brad, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about your writing process itself. So, across all your books, has your writing process been one of the strict discipline or one of the captured inspiration? What does your ideal writing day actually look like?
I think I've kind of used different approaches for some of my books. My first six books were really on leadership, and so they were more in the nonfiction type. Although I did one for kind of focusing on kids and what parents could read their kids on how temperament influences the way they act and behave. And so for that, I did a lot of leadership training. And so I was kind of capturing content as I went through my leadership training career, and then kind of tried to apply it in situations that would be helpful to folks. For an example, um, I have a book called "Quick: I Need to Be a Leader in 30 Days," and that came about because a lot of the participants in my training courses, a lot of them were government officials, were from NASA or with the Navy or other governmental groups, and they often were promoted because of their technical expertise and wisdom. But they didn't know a whole lot about how to lead others and how to manage others. They could do the job themselves, but watching others do it was a different skill for them. So I tried to capture kind of what I thought they needed to be successful in a very short time. So those books, the non-fictional books especially, were kind of based on capturing um, kind of successful approaches, techniques, skills that I had experienced myself. My last book is a novel called Finding Eden, A Perilous Quest for a Safe Migrant Homeland. And that was more inspirational, I would say. And that came about because of my years working out in the Pacific and on islands. And I was a volunteer on a very tiny island in the Marshall Islands. And my wife's work with immigrants here in New Orleans. So I kind of put those together and did a lot of research and then on the challenges immigrants had, especially those coming out of Africa and the Middle East, trying to get across the Mediterranean, which was very dangerous. Many people drowned. They don't even know how many really lost their lives trying to find a better way to live, a better, safer place to live. So, based on that research, then I tried to have an inspiration of how do I meld those two together, the island approach with the challenges that migrants faced in their pursuit of happiness, really. And so I put those together where I have migrants ending up on an island run by pirates. So it's another challenge that they would face, which I felt mimicked kind of the challenges that actual migrants face today.
Interesting, Mr. Brad. And do you have a specific ritual or certain place, a particular drink, music, or silence that signals to your brain it's time to write?
Um, hmm, Good, very good question, Daniel. Um, I think in general, it's more of the silence, and I think in that silence, every so often, there's a need. I feel a need to fill that silence, especially when I'm at my computer or I'm doing research, and I know it's time to get some things down on paper or on the computer, I should say, um, so I don't forget it for one, and then it's more data that's there that I can then have as a resource to try to mix and match where my characters, what would their reactions be to learning about this research or running into the challenge that the research has uncovered. So I would say silence for me is probably the one that makes me think, hey, I ought to be doing something to fill that silence.
Silence indeed is the key. From pen and paper to specific software, what are the non negotiable tools of your trade? How can a change in technology ever fundamentally shifted your writing process?
Yeah, and that what you bring up is a controversy with writers today. It's about the use of AI. It's amazing what AI can do. Um, I have been more of the old school. I did not want to use it or be influenced by AI. So I have, although I'm certainly in favor of the use of AI, especially as it applies to medicine and how it can streamline research. I really like that idea. Um, and several of my friends use AI in their work other than writing. So, but for writing, I'm kind of old school, and I prefer to use just the paper and pencil, and and Google different items and use the computer to uh, to do that. And then I basically use the good old you know word processing, a variety of good programs uh, to get things down and to then to manipulate them. I'm finding it a challenge in many respects when I see others using AI or other kinds of technology. I almost don't want to know about it, so I don't want to be influenced by it. It's like when you read other writers just before you start writing, you have to be impacted by that. So I try not to do that. I love reading, but when I'm writing, I don't usually read other people at all for fear of being influenced by their approach or their style or some of the words or phrases they use. I don't want to do that. So I try to keep focused and not rely on others and kind of keep on the more traditional ways of writing.
Focus indeed. Keep focus. So, where do your books typically begin? With a character, or what if question, a theme, or an image?
Yeah, I think kind of a question typically in my mind comes up. Um, with my leadership books, it's I always kind of think of myself as one of my leadership or management training participants, And some of their questions always comes to mind for me. They would say, well, what am I supposed to do if I'm faced with this situation or that situation? So I kind of pick a lot of different topics and then ask those questions to myself. What should I be doing? What do I recommend doing? With my novel, it was a little bit interesting. It was more of what would I personally do if I'm faced with a challenge of I've got to get my family out of my country to a safer place to live, and there's only a couple ways I can do that: by crossing the Sahara Desert and paying people to ship me in the back of a beat up truck. And the research I did showed that's what they do in the back of a truck across the desert, paying people off and for your safety and to get through desert police lines and things like that to a port where I'm paying more money and putting my life in danger to get on a ship to try to get across the Mediterranean. What would I do? So I kept asking myself that more of a personal way. So kind of with the leadership books, it's more from the questions of what would my participants do when they're faced with that. But for the novel, I looked at it more personally. What would I do in faced with a situation that I had to do something to save my family?
Interesting, Mr. Brad. And once you have an idea, how do you nurture it before you start writing? Do you use outline, note cards, or mental maps, or something else entirely?
I do like mental maps, and I would use a paper and pencil exercise on that with kind of the main circle. And if you can imagine a piece of notebook on a notebook page, in the circle in the middle is kind of the main idea. So for Finding Eden, for example, it's finding a safe place. And then kind of offshoot, how do I get there? What money do I need? What are the resources? So lines would be coming out of that center circle uh, and break it down into more detail from that. Then, when that's kind of exhausted for me, it's kind of going through and seeing, okay, I can cover these circles with kind of a chapter on this. But I'm still missing this, this, and this. So that may be another chapter. So I start to kind of break it down. Um, at least with the novel, I did that. With especially with the quick, I need to be a leader in 30 days. I did it from a story, from a vision of I have 30 pages. I have 30 pages, and in each page, I came up with an approach. Kind of here's the theme for the day. Here are the books or articles that need to be read this day. Here's the leadership model, if you will, that should be introduced or practiced that day. And here are some exercises that you can do on the job. Very simple, but so it's not just a reading exercise, that you're actually trying to apply some of the information that you're learning about leadership. And that worked out pretty well. Certainly with Finding Eden, I've gotten a lot of reviews. Unfortunately, with my leadership books, it was all for mostly for government workers, and so they didn't leave many reviews. They weren't allowed to, I guess, do that. Finding Eden, though, I've got over 130 some reviews, and I'm always looking for more reviews. So I hope your listeners, if they are interested in the topic, will pick up copies and leave some reviews. I'm always interested in getting feedback from the approach that I take to the writing.
Definitely. Mr. Brad, you've spoken about the editing process before, but what about the ideas that don't make it? Is there a common type of scene, character, or chapter that you find yourself consistently having to cut, no matter how much you love it?
Yes, and And somebody gave me a great idea about how to handle that, and I did it in my novel Finding Eden. I had a story. My first when I started to finish kind of putting the novel together, there were two areas that I had thought about and written a little about, but they didn't fit into the book. And so somebody gave me an idea of saying, well, why don't you add those in as freebies? And I said, like, what does that mean? They said, well, for an example, in Finding Eden, my first story was, what about that original ship that brought the pirates to this island that the in the book my migrants end up on? But I had no room to put that in. And so one idea was, why don't you narrate the short story that I had already kind of half written and add that as, and just put a URL, a free URL in. So anybody that buys my book and about the 10th or 12th page, they'll see, hey, interested in more on how the pirates got to the island? Here's a free, click on this, type this in, leave your put your email address in, and it's a freebie. And so I did that, and I narrate like about a 5 minute story about the how the pirates first got to the island. That's not in the book, but it is there. And the second one was I was very interested in how migrants today have to get through the Sahara Desert. Can you imagine? In the back of a pickup truck with about 20, I think there's like 19 people that they could stuff in the back of a Ford 500, 150 or something, a pickup to go across the desert. And two of my characters in the story are from Africa, and it's a brother and sister trying to get to France to go to school. And I always thought it would be so interesting to read more about their journey through all the stops in the Sahara before they get to Tripoli, where they're trying to catch a boat. And so I wrote that up with the same person gave me the hit. Hey, put it in as another freebie. And so I did that. So there are two freebies in Finding Eden that addresses your question of what do you do when there's a lot of good information that just doesn't fit into your book. I have it as two free URLs, and you just type it into your browser and punch in your email address, and you get another story. So that's how I approached it.
Well, Mr. Brad, interesting indeed. As an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, I think in the short term, I am. I'm always trying to get more people to read the books, obviously, and to leave reviews. Reviews are certainly on Amazon, where my books are, and it's always a good thing to have a lot of reviews. So I'm constantly kind of urging my readers to leave reviews in the short run. Also, in the short run, I have I'm with a local group here in New Orleans of screenwriters who enjoy writing scripts that hopefully someday would be made into a movie. And I thought Finding Eden, especially, would make a very interesting, action-packed thriller, if you will. And so I've been working on, in the short run, of turning Finding Eden into a movie script. And so I've been doing that along with a couple of others. So in the short run, I've been doing that. In the long run, I am writing the kind of the counterpart to Finding Eden, and it's called Leaving Eden, and it's a continuation of the migrant story that started in Finding Eden. So in the long term, I think, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from readers who said, "Hey, This is great. But what happens to them? What happens next? We're very interested, and so I appreciate that interest and concern, and in the longer term, I will take that on and do the next story about finding Eden.
Finding Eden, indeed. So, Mr. Brad, tell us what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author like you and looking forward for more success and good luck to your goals.
Thank you. Um, Daniel, you know, if you've ever kind of wanted to get advice, some of the best advice I've ever received is from experts who say, "You gotta don't take it my advice. Do do your own thing. Don't be overly influenced by the success of others." And I kind of go along with that. What I have learned and happy, I've been a trainer kind of all my adult life. I think if I were training new authors, I would be telling them to one would be to really be inspired, like I was with Finding Eden. Try to find something that you're really passionate about it and are willing to spend a year or so doing it. It takes, I think, to be successful, from my view, for what it's worth. I think research has to be done so that there's a believability about what you write. Somebody could have written about going through the desert, in half a page, and I spend that whole site. I have 20 pages or something about the trials and tribulations of going by truck through the Sahara. So that's one thing, is to be inspired, be passionate enough in your topic so that you'll stick with it. I think the author James Michener, the famous author who wrote Hawaii and many others, said the only difference between a professional writer and an amateur writer is that the amateur quits. And
Yes.
so, you need to have that stick to itiveness, I think, is important um, on that. And then I think in terms of editing, once you've finished, um, I would not. My advice is just don't give it to your mother or your spouse to read alone. It is good for them to read it, I think, and give you feedback. But have somebody that you don't know, or you can pay for editors. There are great editors out there, to have a more objective person do the editing. Because there are some things that you think are just so obvious in your writing that everybody should understand it. And you'll get a good editor who will say, "What did you mean by this? What did you mean by that?" And I think that's important. It's a wake up call. And it forces you to go back and kind of think, okay, what did I mean by this? It's not as obvious as I thought it was. So those are some of the things. Be willing, be passionate, be willing to do the good research on it, and have a objective editor. I think those are really important. And then a final thing I think would be to accept feedback. You don't have to agree with it, and some of it you'll totally disagree with because the reader didn't get you, didn't get what you were trying to say. But just know that that's going to happen, and that there'll be others who will absolutely love what you write. So those are the main things I would say in terms if I was teaching a intro course for new authors.
Interesting, Mr. Brad. And thank you for that advice. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Oh, I'm very influenced by a couple of authors. The famous ones, of course, to me, Hemingway has always been an influence on me. Hemingway could write, to me, action adventure, and he could also kind of write love stories. And I enjoyed his style, short sentences, um, approaches to. I liked his approach to different topics, everything from from wars to bullfighting, um, and I think that was influenced me on trying to come to the point, not doing a lot of hyperbolating about different things, but really trying to get to the point. Um, and then some authors like a friend of mine, Joe Thoreau, is an interesting author. He based his kind of historical fiction, based in Hawaii, where he used to live. Um, I'm influenced by his storytelling. It's kind of interesting, trying to take historical incidents and putting characters around it. And I kind of do that with the research, even in my leadership books. Kind of you have a leadership principle, and then you have a character trying to apply um, that that principle, that leadership principle, in the real world to make it, not just a kind of a lecture approach of this is what you must do. It's like, hey, here's what the issue is. Here are various ways that you might attack it, and I really enjoyed that. So there are a lot of different kinds of of authors and action adventure type authors that I enjoy. I will still go on Amazon where my books are available, and and look every so often at who's writing what, and especially I think for me in the action adventure areas is fascinating.
Well, thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Brad. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. A comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in first season, and my baby podcast. Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Brad, the editor author relationship is profound. How has a great editor specifically shaped your writing process or pushed you to the better than you thought you could be?
Yeah, like I said, I think that's a very important aspect of any new author is to have a good editor. I mean, my editors on different books, they're the ones that will tell you the truth, and if they're somebody may or may not give you the truth, somebody you pay, or somebody that you totally don't know and is willing to do it is your objective editor, and they're great. And there's different kinds of editors. Some editors you could hire, and they will read your book and basically say, I don't understand it, or there's no logic, or this chapter should come after this chapter. Others will just look at it from a grammatical point of view and say, hey, you've used the word trouble a billion times, and it's annoying to the reader, and give you advice that way. So there are different types of editors that you can get. So I've had nothing but a positive relationship with the editors, because going into it, you kind of want them to find something, especially if you're paying them. And I've paid good money for good editors, and you kind of hope they come up with something. You're paying for it. You hate to see them come back and say, hey, this was great. Don't change a word. That hasn't happened to me, but I would hate that for that to happen to anybody. So, it's always a challenge. I mean, I even had editors look at my website. By the way, it's braddude.com, where I've got interviews on there, and you're showing my website right now with my books on it, where you can it takes you to Amazon, and I even have a leadership quiz on there, a free quiz that you can take, which kind of introduces the concepts behind some of the leadership books. But good editors have all given me feedback on what I write. So I do always use an editor in my writing.
Mr. Braddude, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, please visit my website, braddude.com. It's fairly interactive. We've got all the books on there, and takes you to the Amazon pages where you can see all these books. And I even have Finding Eden is also an audio book as well. So for those, in fact, I found my son, who's more like about 30. He's about 42 right now. He enjoyed the audio book more than reading a book, and that I'm learning that age group likes to do that. So visit my website, take the leadership quiz, and get a few books. And please leave a review. I'm always looking for more reviews. Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Braddude, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Brad, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Multicom people, see you soon.